You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spectral Zone with host CHATROOM.
Good evening, guys and gals, and welcome to the Spectral Zone. I am Kaz Rooney. As always, I'm here to bring you an exciting guest. I finally have managed to get American author Chris Kullstroem into the studio with me. Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so excited to have you on the show, finally.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Now, for those of you who don't know Chris, I'm sure lots of you have read her book, Drawn to the Dark. Now, what a book that is. This is a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, you have to read this. But, Chris, I want to start a little bit about you.
Okay.
So, did this start when you were young? You were interested in monsters and demons and everything dark. Did that come from when you were young?
Yes. I've been interested in monsters and the horror genre ever since I was little. And my older brother was infatuated with Stephen King and Tales from the Crypt. And so I saw his fascination with it and quickly saw how cool it all was.
Were you not even a little bit scared?
I think I was never scared because he was never scared. Okay. And so I would just see him watching the show and not getting scared, but just being all caught up in how great it was. And so I reacted the same way. And so when my friends were scared, I just couldn't believe it. Why would you be scared of it? It's so cool.
I think that's quite awesome, actually. Do you know what else I think is quite awesome?
What's that?
How brave are you? Now, I mean, this is the thing, Chris. It takes a lot of nerve to decide you're going to just take off for a year, visit 11 countries, and write a book all about this. What on earth? Weren't you even a little bit just terrified of what could happen?
Oh, no.
No?
I thought of all the great things that could happen and all the experiences and the shows and being able to write a book to present those types of adventures to the world. And so I really focused on that as opposed to worrying about any dangers that might be involved.
Oh, wow. I think that's incredibly brave. I really do, because there isn't a lot of people who would do that.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's awesome. So you started, it says, I believe in your book, October the 25th was the day you left the USA.
Yes, I left right before Day of the Dead in Mexico.
Yeah, and that's straight where you went, isn't it, to Mexico?
Yes, to Oaxaca. Specifically because I was told they had the best Day of the Dead event.
Now, this is interesting. When I was reading your book, this did make me chuckle. There is a lot of humour in your book as well, as long as a lot of factual information and your perceptions. But the boarding house that you were staying in, you met 4 ladies?
Yes.
The fabulous 4?
Yes. They were the most energetic women I've ever met, and yet they were all over 70 years old and had come to Mexico for a full month specifically to study Spanish, as they did every year.
Wow. And they'd come on their own as well?
Yes. They had all come from, a few of them were from California in different parts, and others were from other parts of the country, and they met up there, and they loved being there at the time of Day of the Dead because they wanted to go to the cemeteries and see how it was celebrated with the lights and the flowers.
When you got there, and now the actual Day of the Dead holiday, my accent's horrible, so I'm not going to say the actual way it would be said. But what was your impression of people's perceptions during the holiday?
I loved how death was approached in a completely different way than it is here in the U.S. It was celebrated, not just acknowledged, with food and artwork and costumes and families coming together to go to the cemeteries and putting up these huge altars in businesses and at people's homes to welcome both the memory and the believed spirit returning of their ancestors. And I thought that was just a great way, a great holiday to celebrate every year.
I mean, it is a really big thing, isn't it? People go from all over the world to go to it.
Yes.
I mean, I imagine the atmosphere is quite intense.
Yes, very lively.
You're very swept along with it all.
Yes. There's music, parades, dancing, costumes, displays, everything. It's like a big carnival, a carnival celebrating the dead.
Wow. I think that's awesome. What would you say was your best experience in Mexico?
I think the parade, the Complaza that I was in, because I've never been in anything like that. My experience with parades is you kind of just stand back and watch as other people dance and have fun and go by. But this was something that the people watching were expected to take part and to join it. And so that was really fun to do that for the first time. And that people, complete strangers, were passing around drinks to share out of the same little glass. And I just thought that was great, that sense of camaraderie and trust.
It's fantastic. We could actually learn a lot from that, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
We should approach things maybe in a different way.
Yes. And it's the complete opposite of how most people view Mexico. My friends were so nervous about crime or danger, but it wasn't like that at all. It was completely safe.
Well, this is the thing. That's what occurred to me. I mean, when I got your book, and I hadn't even opened it, but I thought to myself, isn't she worried about getting sick or crime or what could happen, and she's away from home, and what about a family? Are they not worried about this? So I think what you've done is brave.
Oh, thank you. And the way I approach it is, things are going to happen, and you just know that you can deal with whatever happens. Like at one point, I did get food poisoning in Mexico, but I just went to the doctor. I was put on antibiotics. I think the whole thing cost $50, whereas in the States, God knows how much that would cost. And in a few days, you're fine again, and then you just go on.
Well, when you left Mexico, you went to Salzburg.
Yes.
Krampus.
Yes.
Everyone knows about Krampus. But when I was reading your book, do you know the thing that actually jumped out at me?
What?
That you got hit.
I admit I wasn't expecting that either.
Can you explain the story for people listening, please, Chris?
Sure. I knew that Krampus was a big demon that came around in the beginning of December to Austria and southern Germany, and how it originated was he would accompany St. Nicholas going door to door, and St. Nicholas would give treats to the good little boys and girls, and Krampus was believed to steal the children, take them away.
Yeah.
And now what happens in the big cities like Salzburg is that these huge groups of people dress up like Krampus and run down the streets in these kind of like parades, but they're much more violent in that
Wow.
they attack people with weapons, which could be a horse's tail, a cow's tail, or a bundle of branches. And they really do strike at people. And of course, it's all in good fun, so it's only going to hurt for a second. But I guess I didn't expect it. I didn't expect that second to hurt as much as it did. But then after it happens the first time, you get over it, you see everybody's laughing about it, and you just enjoy the rest of it.
That seems a really strange thing to do, though. I mean, especially if you have people who don't know this tradition, or that they would do this, and they've come from abroad or whatever, and they've just thought, oh, what's going on here? And they're wandering down, and someone comes and hits them with a horse's tail.
Exactly.
It's quite...
A majority of events are barricaded off so that people know what they're going into when they look at it. But there were other events that, like you said, they're just out in the crowds, and there's people from all over Europe just doing their Christmas shopping, and there's this monster running at them with a weapon, hitting them.
I can actually see the humour in that.
Yeah. But the actor knows that it's just going to hurt for a second. It's going to shock them more than anything. And then if they don't like it, they can just back away.
I think I would have run away, not back away.
I'm sure plenty of people do.
It'd be really strange. I mean, it'd be quite an experience, but it would be very, very strange.
Absolutely. Culture shock, to say the least.
But, I mean, when you're there, I mean, obviously you get to meet people on your travels.
Yes.
So before we go any further, did their perceptions help you when it came to writing your book and writing about what you were experiencing?
Absolutely. Because if it were just me going by myself and not meeting anybody in these areas, I wouldn't have a different context of what all this meant and what I was seeing. And so because each place I went to, with the exception of Mexico, I knew the person I was going to be staying with beforehand through the organization Couchsurfing.
Yes.
And my host always knew about why I was going there and explained what I was going to be seeing before I was there. And so that helped a lot. And so my host in Salzburg had grown up with Krampus. He knew that I was going to get hit and was able to laugh about it with me afterwards. And that made a big difference.
Did he actually pre-warn you that may happen?
I'm trying to remember. He certainly knew that it would. I think he knew that there would be hitting involved, but he didn't make a point to point out to me, you're going to get hit, and it's going to hurt, so just beware. Maybe he wanted me to discover that on my own.
Oh, dear. Now, you went from there to Florence, I believe, didn't you, from Salzburg?
Yes.
This is the thing. You did so much in that year. So what about Florence? What was the favourite experience for you in Florence?
I just really loved being in the city where Dante was from and knowing that his story of the Inferno in the Divine Comedy shaped the way people envisioned hell for that point onward was just so meaningful. And every statue I saw of him and every artwork I saw based on his writings was just really meaningful for me as a writer.
Well, I mean, there's imagery everywhere, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely everywhere. You'd be surrounded by it. Some of it, I imagine, is quite beautiful, though.
Oh, yes. I thought it was all beautiful.
Yeah. On to the not quite so beautiful. Torture museums in Tuscany.
Yes.
Spanish spiders Would you like to tell everybody about Spanish spiders?
I'm trying to remember what they were now.
I think it was a torture device, wasn't it?
It was definitely a torture device. I'm trying to remember. It sounds like some kind of an iron clamp.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was a kind of clamp, and they kind of clamped you and suspended you upside down. Kind of almost like you were a spider.
Okay.
That's the way I envisioned that when I was reading it.
There were all kinds of clamps and hooks, unfortunately, that they would use to suspend people from any orifice they chose.
Yeah.
And the torture museums definitely depicted it in all its gruesome detail by the use of mannequins, so that you would really see what it was like to see that performed on somebody.
Was there anything that literally, even though you can kind of deal with those images and you were expecting images, did even you get shocked?
Oh, yes. I got shocked in that because that was true history that was happening all over Europe, and it's just difficult to be in the mindset of somebody who would be able to do that to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's what intrigues me the most. How could those types of practices be so common and accepted back then? And today, we can laugh at kind of depicting them in, say, haunted attractions where it's all fake and it's all in good fun. But then to go to a museum to see where it's actually based on real history, completely different experience. But I think just as fascinating.
Yeah, but when you bring in that, like going into a museum like that, I believe in the museum as well, there was it was almost like a manual. It was wrote in the 15th century. Hammer of the Witches.
Right.
Right. And that's when it will strike you, that human element, that these things were actually done to people. These tortures were actually carried out on people, and it must seem quite barbaric.
Absolutely.
But why do you... Sorry? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it makes you really appreciate the living in the here and now.
Why do you think we're so fascinated by it, though?
Well, for me personally, it's the thought of how could somebody do that to somebody else? I guess in the same way that I found it interesting that I could watch horror movies and be fascinated, whereas somebody else could watch them and be actually terrified. You know, how are you? It's all on our perception. So with the torture museums, as much as those simulated scenes are fun and a haunted attraction that's all fake, I can't put myself in the mindset, or try to put myself in the mindset, how could hundreds of years ago people not have been horrified at the thought of doing this to somebody else?
I guess then it was a different time, it was a different mindset completely. Right. And they didn't have the things we have now, so I would have to say it would be along those lines. I mean, with witch trials and everything else, and I mean, some torture devices are barbaric, absolutely barbaric, but that is what really happened.
Right.
But, so you're going along on these travels. Obviously, you're doing your writing while you're doing that.
Yes.
Did your family check up on you?
Yes, and my friends. But fortunately, that's where social media is really helpful, because every time I posted where I was on Facebook with pictures of these things, everyone knew I was alive and well.
Oh.
And so people might have negative things to say about social media sometimes, but it is good for keeping an eye and making sure everybody's okay.
But this meant a lot to you to do it, didn't it?
Absolutely.
It was your way of bringing another perception on how we look at this and why people are drawn to this. So I can understand why you were compelled to do it, Chris. I really can. I just still can't. I couldn't imagine leaving my home for a year and couch surfing for a year in foreign countries on my own. I just couldn't imagine doing that.
It's a great way to experience the world and to meet new people.
That's true. I mean, you must have met lots of interesting people.
Yes. And a lot of us still stay in touch.
That's fantastic, though. That is fantastic. But, I mean, the sights you've seen, they will stay with you forever. And they're immortalised in your book as well. Everyone can read about it. Japan. Japan have got the first day of spring festival, haven't they?
Yes.
Setsabun.
That's right.
They throw beans
Yes.
to
Part
chase
of
away
the-
Oni, I believe.
That's right. That's right. Oni are demons associated with ills and misfortune in the world. And in the Chinese New Year, they want to banish all of those things from entering into the new. And so the custom is to throw beans at costumed actors who are dressed up like the Oni and represent these ills and misfortunes that are banished by throwing the beans.
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting about that, Japan's a place I imagine being very spiritual. I don't know why I imagine it that way, but I do. But why beans?
It all dates back to a legend of the first Oni who attempted to seduce and capture a girl by presenting her with kimonos made from a magic mallet.
Yeah.
And the plan kind of backfired in that the girl was more interested in acquiring the magic mallet than she was the kimonos meant to seduce her. And so she got this Oni character who was disguised, drunk, to steal the mallet while this disguised woman was unconscious. But once she did this, the disguised Oni woke back up, saw that it had been duped, and removed the wrappings around its face so that the girl saw that she was dealing with a demon this whole time. And the only thing she had to protect herself was a bowl of soybeans. And so she grabbed the beans, threw them at the Oni, this horrible monster, and it was enough to make it flee. And so from then on, the tradition goes that the Oni come around for the new year and you throw beans just like the girl did, and then it flees.
Wow. That's quite interesting. One thing, I mean, I mentioned before, Chris, about humour in your book. When I was reading the section on Japan, what I find quite funny, your host said to you, do you know about toilets in Japan? Singing toilets?
Yes. Did you know
Really?
about that?
No.
Oh, good. Then I wasn't the only one. Yes, they sing to you. They have the little keypad on the side where you push a button and it will flush and it will sing and it will do all these things. So
Really?
just the way a rice maker will sing when the rice is done, the toilet will sing.
Wow. I find that hilarious. I actually find it quite interesting as well. Why would they... Who thought that up?
I know. Why not make the toilet experience fun? I guess that's what they were thinking.
Why have we not got it here?
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's probably just a matter of time.
But that's just a classic example, isn't it, of characters you meet along the way and things you find along the way.
Exactly.
And the traditions they have. I mean, obviously going from country to country, you have to be aware of their beliefs, what they believe in and what their traditions are, and follow on from them.
Yes.
Did you have to do a lot of research before you went to each place?
I researched the festival that I was going to see and the reasons why it came about. But I didn't want to do too much research because I really wanted everything to be new as soon as I saw it for the first time.
So that you got that first impression.
Yes.
That's cool. That's really cool. So, would you say someone said to you, I'm going to Japan, and they said, right, Chris, I'm going to go to Japan, where would you tell them to go?
I would definitely tell them to go during the Namahagi Festival in the town of Oga in northern Japan, because that was one of my favorite festivals, even though it was the coldest I have ever been in my entire life.
Wow.
I would just say dress warm.
So why was that one your particular favourite?
I think because I was really surprised to see a character that reminded me a lot of Krampus, who was another one of my favorite characters in Japan, and that it had a similar role, just like the Krampus was meant to scare children into behaving. The Namahagi were there to scare children into staying on good behavior all year, and to see such a similar character in different parts of the world was really interesting.
Do you think, I mean, your personal views on these different, well, some would say they're urban legends, but we'll say beliefs, on the different beliefs, there's an element of truth somewhere in there to the people?
I think that what really struck me was the universal need for people to rely on stories and characters to understand the world and our place in the world. And so if it takes the myth of a monster to tell the kid to keep his room clean and to eat his vegetables and do his homework, that it's interesting that people in Europe had that idea and people in Japan had that idea, and in different places around the world, the creation of monsters to pass down values. That's what stood out to me.
Yeah, it's almost like I understand where you're coming from. Universally, it's just about everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all have these kind of little things to get. Well, I haven't gone to demons to get kids to behave, but I may actually try that. I may actually try that. So, from Japan, you went to Berlin?
Berlin was a couple stops after.
Oh, was it? Right, see, I'm jumping ahead now. Right, where did you go straight from Japan?
From Japan, I went to Hungary for their Busho Harez Carnival. And that was interesting to see people dressed up almost Krampus-like, with the horns and the large eyes and the big teeth, but not to intimidate or scare, but as these jovial, happy characters that were part of their spring celebration.
Now, see what I find interesting about that. We have this image, right? So if you have this, like, almost, well, I suppose I would say devil-like form with horns, and you're not going to see it as happy, are you?
No.
So how can they see it as happy?
Well, what it represents to them is back in the Battle of Mohat in the 1500s, they dressed up as these bushos to frighten away the Turks who were oppressing their village. Okay. And so they were intentionally trying to look scary to scare the Turks away, as legend goes, and it worked. But the story says the Turks fled because of that. And so now they continue to dress as the bushos every year to remember the Battle of the Mohat, but poke fun at the fact that it is just a mask, it is just a costume, and that we can laugh about it and celebrate our success and our freedom because of what these scare tactics allowed us to do.
That's interesting. That's an interesting perception, actually. That is interesting. But what else in Hungary caught your attention?
Well, I primarily went for that, the Bucharest Festival. But after that, I went to Budapest because I learned that they had a haunted attraction there. And it was actually one of the best haunted attractions I've ever been in, called Underground Fear.
Wow. It sounds pretty scary. Was it scary?
It was, in a great way. It was like going through a horror movie where the monsters were really coming after you. And unlike a lot of haunts here in the U.S. where they're not allowed to touch you because they're so afraid of being sued, evidently Budapest isn't very sue happy. So they were happy to like grab you and throw you in a closet and rough you up. And it just made it more fun because that's what a horror movie is. The victims are really getting attacked.
That's an interesting point you brought up. I mean, like in the USA, they couldn't do that. They wouldn't physically touch you.
Right.
Do you think we're missing out on things because of that kind of the way people are now? It's not... I mean, you've gone to Hungary, you've experienced that, and you must think when you go back to the US, this isn't the same. It isn't anywhere near the same experience. It isn't as much fun.
Right. Fortunately, some shows here, they do have that option, but you have to wear a bracelet or something like that, or pay extra or go in a certain show. But I think, but then there are a lot of people who specifically won't go into a show where they can touch you.
Okay.
And so by saying that the actors can't, it allows them a much bigger audience, because I think if they could, a lot less people would go through because they just can't break that barrier of something scary physically touching them, which is a shame.
It is a shame because in a way it's, as you say, they're actors. They are acting a role. It is meant to be an experience and it's meant to be an element of fun in that. But it's a shame that people are, I don't know how to say it, scared these days.
Yes.
It's the only way I can put it. Scared these days.
Yeah, and especially scared in a show that's meant to entertain them. I mean, it's all in good fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel, I mean, you yourself, obviously you've went there, you've been a part of that. Do you think that there should be, people should be more open and participate more in things like this?
I think they'd get a lot more out of it if they did. All these festivals that the entire town came out to celebrate, they looked forward to that all year in the way a lot of people look forward to Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It's such a different experience than, say, watching a movie in your living room or even in a theater where you're just a passive observer. But to actively engage in something like that and feel that sense of camaraderie, it makes a huge difference.
So do you feel, Chris, I mean, as you were going through these experiences, yes, we're helping you understand more and giving you different perspectives, but having done these experiences, that's enriched your life a bit.
Absolutely. And I think specifically because I did them with other people who were from those areas and were looking at them in a completely different way than I was. Like when I first saw the Namahagi in Japan, I couldn't believe that these costumed actors were actually picking kids up who were scared and dragging them out of the house. And a kid at that age didn't really know what was going on. And so I thought, well, maybe that's going a bit too far. And my host said, no, I grew up with this. You know, I laugh about it now and I'll carry it on with my kids. You're looking at it from a different way. You're looking at it as cruel, but it isn't. And so just every place I went, seeing it from a different perspective really opened up my mind in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise.
When you were on your travels, I mean, did you come across any place, in whichever country it was, Chris, I'm not going to specifically go on to one country, but did you come across any place where you just said, no, I don't want to be part of this and walked away from it? Or did you just go along with it?
I can't think of any place where I wanted to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But then every place I went, I pretty much knew what I was going there to see and knew that it was something that I wanted to see.
Because that you had that fascination, well, not fascination, interest.
Yes.
And you wanted to understand it more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you did go to Transylvania, didn't you?
Yes, for 6 weeks. It was beautiful.
I imagine it is beautiful. It's somewhere I would love to visit, but sadly I haven't got there yet.
Yet, that's the word. You will.
Yet. A whole 6 weeks in Transylvania. You must have been all over the place. You must have you've got to have gone to Dracula's castle.
Yes. And fortunately, the person I stayed with, my host Robert, liked to travel too. And he was happy to meet somebody who was coming specifically to see his own area.
Yeah.
And so we went everywhere together. And he was legally blind, although he had limited vision in one eye.
Wow.
And so after we went to the castle in the town of Braun, I was able to take him through his first haunted attraction. And he had seen it many times, but never gone in. And so that was really special for me to take him through his first one.
Oh, that's so sweet. Did he take you to places? I mean, obviously the tourism side of it, there is these places that people will specifically go to see, but having someone who has grown up there, they'll take you to places that are not necessarily on the tourist map.
Right.
And they'll tell you different things that necessarily aren't always out there for everyone to know. So having that experience in Transylvania, what's memorable to you? What jumps out at you?
I think of all the things that I did there, all the places, being in the actual Carpathian forest was really special because it was something that I kind of always pictured as a kid since I first read Dracula and watched documentaries about Vlad Tepes. It's like, oh, that forest is almost like magical. And just walking through it with Robert really felt special. And I also went for a few runs there by myself to just be like, oh my gosh, I'm going through a run in the Carpathians. It's amazing.
You must have been thrilled. See, I'm understanding more and more why you've done this. I'm beginning to see that. Were you ever tempted to set up tent and stay there overnight?
In the forest?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
Well, where I was, it was just a path, and so I think I would feel weird just camping along a path. Like if there was a campground, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But where I was, no. It never occurred to me, I'll just sleep here.
Do you know what? Maybe you should do that.
For the next trip. That's the thing. Some people don't travel because they think, oh, I wouldn't be able to do everything. Well, just do some things, and then you have an excuse to go back.
Do you know what? That is a really good mindset. That is a really good way of thinking. I like that, Chris.
There you go.
I'm going to remember that. England. What did you make of England?
I loved it.
Really?
Yes, I love the food there. People laugh, but I could eat hot pies every day and just gain 100 pounds. I wouldn't care.
Oh, do you like the pies?
Oh, they're so good. It's probably good they don't have them over here.
What was memorable to you in England?
My favorite activity there was doing the zombie boot camp with my host in Worcester. And just that physical activity of, again, being in like a zombie movie where I'm in armor and armed with baton and shield and actually physically defending myself against these zombie actors who are attacking me and trying to push me to the ground while I fight for my life. That was unlike anything I had ever done.
That actually sounds really cool the way you say it.
Oh!
The way you say it and the way you've written it, it sounds really cool. Being in it, I'm not so sure I'd be so thrilled myself, but that's me.
As long as you know what you're getting into, that can make all the difference.
That is very true. I believe when you were in England, you went to the ScareCon Haunted Conference as well, Haunt Conference.
Yes, that was a wonderful conference, attended by people who run haunted attractions all over England, but also people had come from as far as Australia and a couple people in the United States, a couple people from Ireland, just getting together to talk about how they run their shows, give advice and training on actors, marketing, everything, and just learning from each other's experiences and helping to promote each other.
When they're doing these different, obviously festivals and things, there's history and whatever there. When they're doing shows and things, is it important to have that history as well when they're setting that up?
It depends on the show that they want to make. If they're making shows on true events in history, like, say, Jack the Ripper in England, then they'll definitely want to make it as authentic as possible. But if they're completely making up the characters like killer scarecrows, then they have much more liberty to just design the sets and the background stories in every way they want. So it depends on what they like to do that year.
So did you, what else did you see when you were over here in the UK? You went to Ireland, didn't you?
Yes. In Ireland, I went on my first Ghost Bus tour in Dublin, which was amazing.
Wow.
An actual ghost tour in a coach. And so the upper deck is set up like a theater with a stage. So your guide is really a performer telling you these stories as you go through Dublin. And that was unlike anything I'd ever done. I have to admit, every ghost tour I've taken since then just hasn't been as good.
The thing is, Ireland is a beautiful, beautiful place. I love Ireland. I absolutely love it over there. But they have a lot of history as well.
Right.
Banshees and all sorts. Leprechauns. They have all that as well.
Yes. Spiritual in a completely different way.
Oh, yeah. But would you go back to these carnivals and these places you visited? Would you go back?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's a single one where I wouldn't go back. The people are so nice. The landscape is so beautiful. The food is so good. Another one of my favorite parts. And the shows are just incredible. They're all places I would go to year after year if I could.
Do you think, you went back, we need to mention Mark. If we don't mention Mark, he'll be proper upset with us, won't he?
That's right. Well, we'd hear it.
He's going to be hearing this. But our friend, Mr. Mark Munsey, Hillview Cemetery. And I've been told I have to ask you all about your experiences at Hillview Cemetery.
Okay. I actually met Mark a few months before I left for the trip at another haunted attraction conference in Orlando called Spooky Empire. And I was giving a talk about Halloween tourism throughout the United States. And he took my class, and we stayed in contact throughout my entire travels. I think Mark reached out to me every week. How you doing? You okay? I love watching your adventures. And he, at one point, said, where are you going to end the trip after a year? And I said, well, I'm not sure, but I'd really like to end it at a home haunt and bring it all back to things we do here in the States on a home family level. And he said, I run a home haunt called Hillview Cemetery. If you want, you can stay with me, my family, and cover the event in your book. And I said, oh, that would be great. And so I showed up and met the cast, and Mark gave me a tour of the haunt right out of his house called Hillview Cemetery in St. Pete, Florida.
Yeah.
And it turns out that they were one actor short that night. And so he asked if I could play that role, and I ended up being in the show, and I didn't expect to. I thought I was just going to be at the candy table talking with people how they liked the show. And so it was really interesting to actually be in it and to end the show as an actor, or to end the book as an actor in his show.
But what an experience, though.
Yeah.
Kind of just throwing you in here at the deep end. It'll all be good.
Yeah.
But there is that fascination. I mean, you've travelled to these different countries, you've seen the most amazing things and took part in the most amazing, participated in the most amazing things. But back in the US, you still have all these different things yourself, don't you? Because I mean, like, you have your traditions over there as well when it comes to the dark side of things.
Yes. In fact, traveling for so long and seeing all these different traditions in other areas really made me appreciate Halloween even more, if that was even possible.
Yeah.
And that this really is our tradition. Growing up trick-or-treating and having that neighborhood camaraderie and that sense of trust is something that we do here. And with these haunted attractions that show up, most of which are actually charities and raising money for their local nonprofits, that really is a sense of trust and something that people grew up doing, and it really is something entire towns celebrate. And I guess I didn't even appreciate it as much as I do now until I stepped away from it for a year and saw people in other parts of the world really experiencing the same type of camaraderie.
They just had different ways of doing it in some places.
Yes.
But that in itself is an eye-opening experience.
Absolutely.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's just amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. As we said at the beginning of this, your book, Chris, Drawn to the Dark. Where can everyone get this?
They can actually get it wherever books are sold.
Okay.
If they want to buy it online, they can do so through Amazon or Barnes & Noble. My website, which will link them to Amazon, is monstersbooks.com.
Awesome. Because everybody, I think you should read this book.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, you should read this book. But what are you doing now, Chris?
Well, the reason that it has taken us this long to reconnect is because for 7 weeks this summer, I was traveling throughout the eastern United States looking at cemetery tourism. And so the book I'm working on now is about how different cemetery organizations create events in their cemeteries pretty much to keep them running and to keep the lawns mowed and to inform people about their own local history. And so that book will be about cemetery tourism from Florida to Maine, all the way over to Chicago and back down south.
Wow. So you were living out a suitcase again?
Yes.
Right, you've said something quite interesting there. So cemeteries actually have events in the cemeteries over there?
Oh, absolutely. They give historical tours, costume tours with actors. They have movie showings, plays, lectures, all kinds of things.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been to the UK. You know they would never do that over here. They would. Yes. Wonder if we could introduce that.
Who knows what the future could bring?
I think somebody would complain. The two stiff upper lip over here, they wouldn't do things like that in a cemetery. But I find that fascinating. So if you enjoyed the travels you've done the past 7 weeks.
Oh, yeah. I love it. All the more time in a cemetery. It's all good.
Do you like cemeteries?
Oh, I love them.
Really?
They're excellent places for walking, running, picnicking. And back in the Victorian times, that's what people used them for. They were the place to be, to socialize and just get away from the world.
Do you know, I have actually, personally, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cemeteries within a 10-minute walk of my home.
That's ideal.
And there's one I actually went to about a week and a half ago with my friends, and we were in there and we'd done a live stream. Because it was built in the 1800s and it has a really old church and everything in there, but we can't get into the church. But it's an absolutely amazing place. And people think it's quite strange that I think cemeteries are quite cool.
They are quite cool.
Well, some people don't get that.
Some people are weird.
Some people would say that about us. So you're working on the new book, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea when that'll be out?
I like to give myself a year
Okay.
to write it. I go through several drafts.
So you'll be toiling away on this book, but when you do finish the book and the book is coming out, you will make sure we know about it, won't you?
Absolutely.
Because we'll need to get you back on and speak about that. Because I have never heard of that before in my life.
Oh, that's awesome. And I would love to.
So, all in, do you believe that, I believe people who are drawn to like the darker side of things, monsters, demons, and all these dark things are called haunters, aren't they?
People that put on these shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's not just huge in the US, it's huge everywhere, isn't it?
That's right. And it's growing around the world. As it should.
Do you think this is something we should be telling students on their gap year they have to do?
Absolutely. More should know about this.
Your gap year, you have to go to Mexico. You have to do this.
It'll change your life.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, sharing these experiences, writing the books that you're writing, it's giving people a different view of it.
Right.
It's sharing an experience and it's bringing a little more insight. And I can see why you did it. I can really see why you've done it, Chris, but I'm still blown away by the fact you took off for a year on your own. I really couldn't do that.
It was a great adventure. I would recommend it to anybody.
You like your adventures?
Yes.
So what is the plan after the book? Do you know?
After the cemetery book?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I take it as it comes.
Why do I have the feeling you'll be on more adventures?
I
You
have
strike
that
me as
feeling
that
too.
kind of lady, though. You do strike me as that type of lady that's kind of, okay, I've done that now, I'm going to do this.
Right. That's
Do
pretty
you
much how I live, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's good though, isn't it?
Yeah. Open to more possibilities.
Well, hopefully at some point you'll come back over to the UK.
I definitely will. That's a guaranteed.
Oh, we'll take you around cemeteries. Let us know when you're here. We'll take you around lots of really old, weird cemeteries.
Okay, awesome.
There's quite a few ones that you would really like as well, like Highgate. That's very good.
Yes, I was there years ago.
Beautiful.
Yes, I would love to go back.
Weird history, but beautiful. So, you're going to be writing the book, so you're going to give yourself a year to do that. You're going to see what happens after that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, so if anybody has any suggestions or recommendations, feel free to let me know.
Really?
They can contact me through my website.
Really? So if I share out your website and we all come up with a plan of things for you to do.
Yeah. I would love to hear your thoughts.
We could actually send you off on some really good adventures.
Yeah.
But that's a bit dangerous, Chris.
Well, I didn't necessarily say I would say yes. It would depend on what they were.
Yes, I know, but Parasearch Radio listeners have got very vivid imaginations. They would come up with all sorts, really. The bosses alone would come up with all sorts. Kerry and Paul would come up with all sorts. So they will probably, if you get any messages from Kerry Greenaway or Paul Rook, they are the radio bosses. And anything they're suggesting that you should do, take a really good look at it, because chances are Kerry wouldn't go and do it.
Okay, that's good to know.
She'll send you to do it. Then if it works out okay, maybe she'll do it. So what would you say, if you had to pick three places that you have written about in your book, Drawn to the Dark, what are the top 3 places you think people should go to if they have the chance?
Oaxaca, Mexico for Day of the Dead, Salzburg, Austria for Krampus, and Transylvania for all the attractions and venues based on both Vlad Tepes and Dracula.
And the good part about it is, if they've read your book or they read your book, then they'll have a rough idea what they're getting into.
That's right.
What I found, I've got to ask you about this, the couch surfing organisation.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's a great way to meet people. And you'd be surprised how many people on couch surfing aren't really avid travelers, but love to host people. Because that's how they meet people. They meet somebody coming to town, somebody new.
So is this actually an organisation?
Oh, yeah. It's around the world. There are even couch surfing hosts in Antarctica, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think you would ever go there?
I would love to. It's a shame they don't have any haunts yet.
Yeah, there is that. It's a bit of a drawback, isn't it? But I mean, that is absolutely fascinating on its own. These people are willing to host people coming from around the world.
Yeah, they can't wait to meet somebody who's from an area they've never been. They get to show them around somebody for their first time. They love that.
Wow. I think that's awesome. What we'll do is, we have got your website details. I will make sure that your book is put up. I will make sure your website is put up. I'll make sure people know how to get in touch with you, Chris. We have to shout out hi to Mark. Shout hi to Mark. He'll get all offended.
Mark.
Hi, Mark! Because he'll get all offended, bless him, if we don't. And he's a lovely man. He's actually coming back on.
Oh, good.
I have persuaded him to come back on. So, but Chris, I think the work you're doing is fantastic. I really and truly do. I think it's absolutely awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know how many times I've told you you're brave, but I'm going to tell you again, you are very brave. So I am just thrilled to bits that we eventually got you on the show. And would you recommend this to everyone? Just taking a year out and going off and doing these adventures?
Absolutely. It's life-changing.
Enriches your soul.
Right. Opens your eyes.
Oh, I bet it does. Especially getting hit by Krampus.
Yeah. That's right.
I literally was reading it in the book and going, oh my God. I didn't expect that. Well, we're coming up to the end of the show, sadly. But Chris, I'm really hoping that you will come back when your new book is out.
I'd be happy to.
And we can tell everyone about that too. But I have to remind everyone, we have a new competition up. So if you would like to enter that, and it's Spirit and Soul Island, you should see this. You should see this. It's absolutely awesome. Everything you will spiritually need has been donated by the very own Kerry Greenaway. So to enter that, please go to the Parasearch Radio group page, like the post, comment on the post, and then your name will be drawn. I have no idea when it's being drawn, but I know it's being drawn. For all our radio shows, you can find us on Podbean, you can find us on SoundCloud, you can find us on YouTube. You can also, remember, if you go onto YouTube, subscribe, please, and let us know that you've subscribed. Leave a little comment on shows. If you have anything you want us to discuss or someone you want us to have on the show, let us know that too. But all it means for us to say, Chris, is to say goodnight to everyone.
Well, thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chris. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.